Thank you, Paul. And good evening, everyone. Let us do as Paul suggested and open with a prayer. So I invite you to take a breath. Allow that breath to meet your mouth and your nose. Allow it to meet your physicality and pour itself in the same way that the presence of life itself pours itself into mind and heart and spirit, withholding nothing from itself. And so tonight we come together open, receptive, curious. We come together as spiritual beings having a human experience and seeking a greater experience of that spirituality. There is that within us that knows and knows that it knows. And we seek to convert that knowing into experience that we can both express and share with those that we love. So I'm knowing this evening is good. I open to it. I lean into it. I trust it. I celebrate it. I give thanks for it. And I let it be. And so it is. Amen. So gosh, I kind of don't know where to start. I will tell you that this afternoon my Wi-Fi dropped for a couple of hours immediately prior to this service. And so I'm making some last minute changes, and I'm wondering if I'm going to be able to show up for this. And so I'm writing about freedom, and I'm thinking about my lack of freedom in coming to you and being able to use the internet. And I realized that that's where my work is. It's looking at inside of me and finding where I'm still encumbered. Let's see, I want to start tonight. Actually, Paul kind of started this off. Our theme this month is Unchained Spirituality. And I want to start by telling you that the ministers in our movement had quite a conversation about the word unchained. Some were concerned that the word carried with it baggage and unintended slight or harm. And so we kicked it around. A lot of us on the ministerial listserv had a great conversation, old and young and male and female and black and white and gay and straight. And I think I should tell you the result of the conversation was about half and half. Was about split. Some decided to change their theme for this month to untethered spirituality instead of unchained spirituality. The fact that there was no consensus and the fact that we were able to talk about this and some folks changed their mind is a really good sign for me. I'm thrilled at the fact that we're looking at our languaging. And we're looking at it in a lot of ways, in a lot of places, a lot of words and phrases, and where did they come from? And we're becoming more and more mindful about how we show up in the world. They're not always fun or neat conversations to have. And again, all you really have to do is show up and listen, pay attention, if we're willing to do that, not get defensive, not get argumentative, not get closed. We can remain open and we can evolve, which is what we're in the midst of. I want to share with you a quote tonight that says this: the most important kind of freedom is to be what you really are. You trade in your reality for a role. You trade in your sense for an act. You give up your ability to feel, and in exchange, put on a mask. Here's the caveat. sentence or two. There can't be any large-scale revolution until there is a personal evolution on an individual level. That's got to happen first. I love that. You'll never guess who said it. Jim Morrison. Some of you will remember Jim Morrison. And I think that the fact that it resonates so much with me is that that's where many of us seem to find ourselves right now. Speaking for myself, I'm certainly reconsidering what freedom is and is not. How I buy into both freedom as the nature of creation and my unerring ability to limit my experience of that nature. Fear, shame, doubt, all can play into this equation or consideration of personal freedom. And I'm realizing too, in a way deeper than ever before, that this conversation about personal freedom is not the same conversation for everyone. In fact, it's very unique and individual to each person. There are groups of us that, due to no fault of our own, have more to navigate than other groups, more challenges, more encumbrance, more, let's just call it what it is, more lack of freedom, a greater lack of freedom, and not that. I mean, however that came together, it has come together, and it is our current reality, and we are in the midst of reconsidering all of it and dismantling. Hallelujah, dismantling. There are variables, lots of them, and we're right smack in the middle of considering those variables in this amazing season. So we each have our own equation to consider. And while there is work to be done on a collective basis, ultimately reconsideration happens one person at a time, one realization at a time, one conversation at a time. And that reconsideration and realization, those conversations are underway, for which we can be profoundly grateful. But as the Buddha reminds us in another one of our readings this month, he wrote, irrigators channel water, fletchers straighten arrows, carpenters shape wood, the wise master themselves. And so what is my part of the freedom conversation? The real question that occurred to me this afternoon is, how am I keeping myself in bondage? And that, my friends, is where my work is, and not just on my own behalf, but on behalf of the greater whole, because we're all interdependent and we all influence each other in our world with every thought and word and deed. If I'm limiting myself, it makes me more familiar with limitation, you see, and more likely to use that awareness of limitation, not only against myself, but also against you. I have to free myself before I can even know what freedom is all about. I have to do my own work. Collectively, we're experiencing some new restrictions to our freedoms, and we're seeing some folks not navigating those restrictions very gracefully. Some are more cranky than others. I think we're all getting a little cranky. Have you noticed a recent uptick in the crankiness quotient in the last week or two? It seems to me. I am. This COVID thing makes me cranky, and people sometimes make me cranky. And my illness makes me cranky, and the pace at which some of these conversations takes place makes me cranky. The way that we treat our planet makes me cranky. You see, all of that crankiness limits my freedom. And nobody's doing it to me but me. The freedom to express and to experience joy and kindness and the good that is my design and my birthright, as it is yours. So you see, and I see that I have plenty of work to do right here in the garden of my own mind. Enough liberation work. And as I free myself, Marianne Williamson swoops in and says, your deepest fear, my friend, is not that you're inadequate. Your deepest fear is that you're powerful beyond measure, and your playing small doesn't serve anyone. Your suffering doesn't serve anyone. Your complaining doesn't serve anyone. Your crankiness doesn't serve anyone. We were born to make manifest the glory of God within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. Physician, heal thyself. You'll hear it on the airplanes. Put the mask over yourself first. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Or in the words of the man who can speak, to having his freedom physically curtailed, Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl. He lost everything, he said, that could be taken from a prisoner except for one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. There can't be any large-scale revolution unless there's a personal evolution on an individual level. That got to happen first. And so again and again and again, we ask ourselves two things. I ask myself two things. What is mine to be, and what is mine to do? What is mine to be is perhaps the first order of business, because the being always, always, always informs the doing. The being informs the doing, therefore I must be free in my own mind and heart, you see. Free from fear, free from superstition, free from false belief, free from beliefs that were never mine to begin with, that I perhaps inherited unknowingly. See, sometimes I don't know what to do, but I do know that my being is always informing my doing. And so then sometimes that being is doing enough. I can get hard on myself and think I should do more. That's been up again lately. I know I'm not the only one. And then I remind myself that I am doing with every thought, every word, every feeling, all of that, every bit as important as anything else that I can do. I'm doing my work in consciousness, and that work is interconnected with every mind and heart on the planet. Who and what I am is enough. Perfect, in fact, and whole and complete too. So tonight I claim our freedom from anything or anyone that has held us in bondage in any way. I claim peace and loving kindness, a greater experience of the good that is my design and that is my nature. I claim it for myself. I claim it for each person here tonight. And I know that as I do my own work, as we as a community do our own work, our presence automatically liberates others. Freedom. There's a lot to talk about this month. It's going to be a big month of conversation. What was our other topic? Unchained Spirituality. ultimately it gets down to freedom. So tonight I'm interested in what you think. Um, and actually, I wrote down a couple of questions. The trouble is, I forgot where I wrote them down. No, I think I have them. I'm interested in what kind of dissonance you have experienced in yourself in the last few months. And then I'm interested in how you're meeting that. I'm interested in what you're choosing instead. I'll give you an example. Oh boy, I'm not sure I want to give you this example. There is a politician or two or 20 or 30, but there's a couple in particular that I pray for every day. I chose to do that. I chose to know the truth of who and what they are, the spiritual truth of who and what they are, in a conscious, intentional way, because I didn't feel good about the way that I was thinking and feeling. And I know how powerful that is. So that's one example of catching myself in a dissonant experience and choosing something different. I'm interested in your experience of that same thing and anything else that's up for you tonight. So we've got about a half an hour for conversation, questions, comments. So let's go ahead and open it up. And whoever would like to begin this evening's conversation may do so. How do we do this, Paulie? Oh, he's here someplace.
I'm going to start, Jeff. I'll start. I'll break the ice, and okay. if anybody wants to follow me in a few minutes after my thought, please raise your hand. Either turn on your camera and raise your hand, or use your participants button to raise your hand, that like TC taught us. And the hosts and the Zoom team will monitor and will inform you, Jeff, of who's next.
Cool.
Okay, let's try it that way and see how that goes. So I'm going to jump in on something that you said. Evolution leads to the revolution. It leads the revolution. And I think my freedom, or I feel less free when I fail to remember fundamental truths about myself and what I am entitled to as a human being. So I draw upon something that Franklin Roosevelt did when he was president. And as I read the background on this very quickly, this was from 1941. The nation was very distressed because of the rise of fascism and the increased neutrality in the world. And so he came up with a speech that he delivered, the 4 freedoms. And the 4 freedoms were, he insisted that people in all nations of the world shared Americans' entitlement to 4 freedoms: the freedom of speech and expression, the freedom of worship of God in his own way, the freedom from want, and the freedom from fear, as you addressed partially. And so when I have my deepest and darkest moments of being chained, oppressed, I remember what I'm entitled to as a human being. After he died, his wife, Mrs. Roosevelt, took it and incorporated it into the drafting of the Declaration that was the foundation for the United Nations in 1948. So the evolution started in his head, and he reminded us of the truth of what we're entitled to as human beings. And then he said, it's only in America. This is what we practice. And he challenged the other nations of the world to evolve into this revolution of recognizing their undeniable freedoms. So to me, that's the inspiration source I look towards, especially during these times when I'm feeling a little oppressed by exterior things. I remember that some truths have already been set in stone. I just have to reveal them to myself and remind myself.
And
So
the truth will set us free. I don't remember who it was. Somebody said the truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off.
That was Jesus. They just edited it.
There you go. That sounds like Elena.
Yeah, I wanted to say something as well. Elena,
I do too.
Want to go?
Thanks, Chloe.
Go ahead.
So when you were talking, Jeff, I mean, I got interrupted by a phone call and a text right while you were talking, of course.
Of course.
Yeah. But what I was thinking about when you were talking about crankiness is that we talk about beliefs, but for me, because I have been feeling out of sorts, and for me, crankiness is feeling out of sorts, like not.
Yeah.
And when I stop and actually go in out of my head into my heart, and to really feel in my body, what am I feeling? Where is that crankiness living, and what is it actually saying to me? What I come up with is grief, incredibly deep grief, and loneliness. I mean, the loneliness is from the COVID. I know that it's also deeper than that. But that's sort of what's bringing it forward. And the grief is from everything else that's going on. You know, that all the change that we need to have, and that I need to make in myself. And I feel like I'm mourning, like I mourn this country a lot.
Yeah.
And my part in it, and who I am in it. So, and I know that, you know, like last week, Bonnie talked about getting in touch with her anger and her rage and walking into it. And I know that that's what I have to do. If I don't do that, I'll just stay in the crankiness. And it'll come and go depending on how much sleep I've had and, you know, other things. But it won't go away until I walk into those feelings. And in my case, what I do is go to have practitioner sessions until I can get to the other side of it. Because I know that on the other side of it, there will be freedom.
Yeah. Well, and you made essentially the same point that Paul made, and which is where I come to too, is I have to come back to remembering the things that I forget. And then we get to feel our feelings, and we get to walk through them. God knows we're aspiring to that, to feeling our feelings. And then when they show up, we don't particularly care for them or know what to do with them. But here we find ourselves. And I think there's probably a lot of that mourning going on, Constance, the sadness. There's some profoundly sad elements to what's being discussed. And so it doesn't surprise me at all, to hear that there was an experience of that as well.
So Sherry, did you want to go next?
Sure. Thanks, Constance.
Thank you, Constance.
Thank you, Constance, for what you said. And you too, Jeff. Both of you. I'm just feeling that so much. I'm doing some really deep work right now around forgiveness. And I'm using the book that Desmond Tutu wrote. I don't know if you've read it, but he talked about apartheid in South Africa, and that the country could have gone towards revenge, and it went towards forgiveness instead, and what the profound effect of that was. But he said the truth is brutal. First, you have to face the truth, which is really, really brutal. Yeah. And I have a healer yesterday or the day before who said something really brutal to me. And he said, you're suffering so much. And he said, your family left you, meaning my kids. They left you. They left you emotionally and spiritually a long time ago. And you have been pushing and pushing and pushing to try to be back and be there. And it's not working. And so I took that in, and I got really angry. And then I thought, no, he's right. And it doesn't matter what the truth is. The real truth can be brutal, but then it can set you free, if we're talking about unchained spirituality here. And so I started this forgiveness work of my daughter-in-law and whoever else. And what he said, I'm reading it a little bit now. He says, the traumas we have witnessed or experienced live on in our memories. And that without forgiveness, we remain tethered to the person who harmed us. We are bound with chains of bitterness tied together and trapped. And then he goes on, but tomorrow I'm going to actually be carrying a small stone around with me in my non-dominant hand, in my left hand, which is I'm going to be all the things I'm holding on to that still make me cranky or that I haven't forgiven, and I think I'm going to go back and start with my father again. So, and then the end of that, he says, it's forgiveness, which is not something that we all haven't heard, but again, I had to be reminded, forgiveness isn't for the perpetrator. Forgiveness is for us to feel the peace of that going on. So, and again, like Constance said, I'm feeling in my body. When I'm judging you, where is that in my body?
Yeah. Big work. Thank you, Sherry.
Yeah, it's a shelter in place. What better time to use the time for this, for me. Thanks.
Right. Thank you.
So is there someone else that wants to share? You can just unmute yourself.
This is Robert.
Hi, Robert.
Hi. So a couple of things. One is that Constance, when you said that you grieve for this country, one of the things that I think about with freedom in this country is that we've kind of been sold a bill of goods about what freedom is. We have some mythology in our country about freedom being a very individual thing, whether that's the Marlboro Man or Jack Kerouac's On the Road. It often involves a lack of responsibility. And so I think that we're kind of programmed with a certain idea about freedom that is inaccurate, because freedom is the ability to act within our interconnectedness with other people and just our whole environment. We're not isolated. We're not islands. So I just wanted to make that comment. And then going back to the questions that Jeff was asking. Yeah, people have definitely been crankier, and not just cranky, but like in distress. And I noticed for myself that at the beginning of, there was some fear and anxiety at the beginning of the pandemic, but that settled down, and I sort of got to a place of acceptance and was actually enjoying the shift in in busyness and having more free time and more solitude and that sort of thing. And lately I've been finding that maybe I've had enough of that. So it's like I'm feeling some restlessness, like this wanting to move on. And I also recognize intellectually that we're only like 3 months into this thing, and we could be in it another 6 months, 9 months. We're still in the early stages in some ways. So what I notice is also other people coming to me with their distress. And so I completed the Power of Your Word class recently with Reverend Francione, which was really wonderful. And so I've been trying to put that spiritual practice into practice by praying for other people. And what I find by the using that technique of spiritual mind treatment, that it starts with me connecting to source and recognizing the truth of who I am. And so by doing that, it allows me to really shift my consciousness and be more in that place. So I'm praying for other people, but I'm doing it by healing myself.
Yep.
Or reminding myself, the truth about who I am. So that's how I'm responding to it now, and it feels pretty good.
Yep, you're taking steps. Good for you. Thank you.
So, Joni, you have your camera on, but not your mic. Did you want to talk?
Sure. Yeah, I'm unmuted now.
Okay.
Thanks. So I've been feeling how much I rely on others to help me keep connected to spirit, and how much I need that and miss that, that personal routine every day that you rely on to help me remember and be present and be with God. So I've been recreating how I can connect. And those connections are even sweeter and deeper than ever, with the times being so tender right now. One thing that's really helped for myself is I'm in a women's group, and we've been reading Richard Rohr's The Universal Christ. And we just finished the book, and at the very end, there's this amazing practice called the Divine Mirrors. And he writes about relationship, sadness, anger, and blame, love, seeing ourselves through God's eyes, through others' eyes, and then both through our own eyes. So there's some really good stuff out there. And I'm really thankful for all of you guys and connecting in this way. So thank you all.
Thanks, Joni. Good to see you.
You too.
I think you both touched on something important. I think we're missing each other. We're feeling different experiences of disconnection, and after a while, we get depleted. And I think that's part of the equation. And so where do we go? We go back to our 4-part practice again and again and again. What's our 4-part practice? A 3-part practice. We find something beautiful to behold. We find something to be grateful for. What's the other one? I know y'all know this.
Random act of kindness.
Kindness. Find something to be, express a kindness. I was going to say something else that was really smart and profound, but I forgot. So I'll be back. Somebody else stand in. Who's next?
Well, I'm going to jump in again because a lot of what we've been talking about is the COVID part of the equation. And for me, I've begun to realize that the Black Lives Matter movement has impacted me in probably a more profound way. And I anticipate that it will be. And I just want to take 1 second. Part of this quote is going to be in the Village News tomorrow, but this is from Me and White Supremacy. And she says, "This is love work. Love is one of those words that is hard to define, but in the context of this work, here's what it means to me. It means that you do this work because you believe in something greater than your own self-gain. It means you do this work because you believe that every human being deserves dignity, freedom, and equality. It means you do this work because you desire wholeness for yourself and the world. It means you do this work because you want to be a good ancestor." And that part of the work is easy to shy away from, I think, particularly for those of us who are white. It's easy to shy away from it because it can bring up. I mean, I've gone through many layers of guilt and thinking, and I realize now that was part of the reason I spent 35 years in Canada, so I didn't want to deal with it. And so here I am back dealing with it, and that's where a lot of the grief, most of the grief, comes from. Is just knowing how much work I need to do, and trying to figure out how I can help other people have the courage to do it as well. Because for those of us who are white, it's easy to just go, you know, to let it go, because it doesn't, we think it doesn't impact us, but it does. It just does so much, you know, that it keeps us from being free every much as it keeps, you know, I mean, I remember, you know, we can't be free. One of us can't be free until we're all free. And I think that that is the absolute truth.
Well, and this is, you know, when you speak to, you know, not knowing what to do, this is why the being is so important for me, because there will be times when I don't know what to do either, but I'm very clear on what is mine to be. And I know that the being informs the doing. And I know that the being is in fact its own version of doing. So that's why I reference that as much as I do, because I don't want to get stuck in this hole in the field of consciousness that says essentially what you were alluding to, which is that this is, you know, too much or too big, or certainly too much for one person. All the things that we think, all the reasons that we don't do the work in our own minds and hearts. But that's what the invitation seems to be. Because there will be, I love that description that you read, and there will be and are folks like that. And there will be and are folks that will never be that. And I can't beat my head against the wall because of that fact either. I have to keep doing my own work. I come back to that again and again and again, because whatever their experience is, it's their experience. The most powerful contribution that I can make to the conversation, and in fact to anyone else's life, is to do my own work. It's a big conversation though. I know it is, and it's not that simple either. I don't mean to make it sound simple, because it's not. It's big. And we're feeling our way. And I think as the result of conversations like this with each other, we will do so a little more gracefully than we might have otherwise. We can witness each other and hold the light for each other, and love each other through this time. I notice it's also, along with this crankiness, pardon the term, but there can also be some shittiness that goes along with this. We can be unkind to each other. And I don't think that helps.
No.
So I invite us to be mindful of that along the way.
Okay, Sam, did you want to talk?
Yes, thank you,
Hey,
Constance.
Sam.
Thank you, Reverend Jeff. Good to see you. Thank you for the talk.
Good to see you too.
So, yeah, I have a couple of things, but the first one seemed to, I'm gaining clarity, knowing that I am noticing how I identify myself with my job. So the dissonance there is that the truth of who I am? And I'm reminded of an author who said, if that's where I practice my awareness, and that it will grow. So I'm choosing not to practice that, and noticing that freedom, which is the future, is actually now, and the steps to get rid of that mindset of my identity equals my job. So I'm changing that equation. But my second thought is, and I'm posing this to you and whoever, is freedom is from a human plane. What about the critters? What about the universe? What is freedom to the non-human? I'm complete.
Bless you. Thank you, Sam. It's a big conversation. As you talk about your work, I go around with that all the time. My role and my humanity. You know, and sometimes I have to laugh at myself at some of the beliefs in there, like a senior minister should never have any problems, right? A senior minister should do more. A senior minister should have, if not all the answers, at least most of them, and in their proper order. You know, things like that. And what would it like to be free of our fears and things like that? What would it like to step out from under, as Jim Morrison called them, the masks, you know, the rules that we wear? How much of the way that we show up on the world, in the world, you know, is directed by that, and how much does that constrict our freedom? It's a great question. Everyone will have to answer it for themselves, but I think it's a great question to sit with. I appreciate it, Sam. Thank you. Who's next?
Elena, your microphone was off, so you have to talk now.
See if I can unmute. I also have to turn my answering machine off because it's going off.
We'll listen to your messages.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Just offered.
It'll be boring. It's all marketing. So seeing at the connection between COVID and Black Lives Matter, and I think there are a lot of reasons why the Black Lives Matter thing has exploded right now that are probably connected to COVID. But the one I keep going back to is I keep thinking about, years ago I read this study that the whole concept of empathy, that wealthy people, and I don't want to offend anyone, but wealthy people as a whole, they said tended to have less empathy. And I was thinking, why would that be? And then I found an even more interesting one, which is a given person, as their wealth resources increase, tend to exhibit less empathy. And their bottom line was that it's like a survival skill. It's something we all have, but it's like a muscle, and we use it more when we need it, when we need to connect with others, when we need resources, when we need support and help. And the thing that occurred to me in this COVID moment was, we're all in this together. Everyone's worried about the economy and their job and their health and their loved ones and the death of democracy. And it's like there's a sense of oneness that we're all experiencing now that's different from some other time in the last few decades. Mm-hmm. And when Reverend Jeff, you're talking about feeling cranky right now, one of the benefits I get from seeing 20 or 25 people a week is, over this period, is I've seen, yes, everyone's dealing with their own personal stuff, but going through it myself and watching those folks go through it, it's also really clear that there are some predictable stages that people are going through, from the adrenaline rush of adjusting to the whole COVID thing, to that sense of relief, like, oh, I got this, I'm gonna bake bread now and learn a musical instrument, to all the feelings coming up, to dealing with those and the volatility and what seems to have been happening over the last couple of weeks was that feeling of, oh, this is not a temporary thing I need to adjust to. This is not about the next few weeks. So if this is going to be for the next year, if it's going to be weird for the next year, what does it mean? I think about Frankl, like, how do you find meaning when you don't have a lot of freedom in the ways that you're used to? And how do I make this time meaningful in my life? Yeah. And it feels like we're all kind of hitting those benchmarks at roughly the same time. And that seems to be what's up now. It's like, oh, this is a thing for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, and it leads to the kind of disorientation that everybody's having their own experience of that.
Yeah.
And ultimately, we'll all have to find our own way. But
we're in it together.
Yeah, exactly. That was the caveat, is we can lean on each other, we can hold the light for each other, we can love each other as we do find our way.
It's a different experience of oneness than we're used to.
Yes, it is. And, you know, and what have we seen about tough times, you know, that you go through them, and it makes for a different experience of connection too.
Yeah.
The resulting experience is different. So I'm keeping some of my chips off to the side on that particular bet, you know, that some extraordinary things are going to come as a result of this. I don't have a clue what they might be, but I'll lean on David Bruner again and swipe his line that something wonderful is happening right now.
Yeah.
It's not fun. It's not easy. It's not pretty, but I think it's wonderful.
Yep.
Bless our
Thank
heart.
you.
Thank you, Elena.
Reinhardt gets to talk twice as loud because he actually raised his hand.
Oh, I see a little hand on the screen.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
You're a good man.
Hey
Reinhardt.
guys. Well, so good hearing you all and partially seeing you all.
Yeah.
I was asked to start your video. Okay. To make myself presentable.
Hey, Reinhardt.
Okay. I don't even see myself. I don't know. Oh, there I am.
There
all
you
right.
are. Looking pretty good.
Yes. Very good. So I want to build on what Reverend Jeff said on what's my job to do. This can become clearer, actually. For me, it became much clearer over the last few days as I went through a family crisis. Sometimes things are sort of thrown onto you. My older son had some trouble in previous years, but anyway, there was an issue and he landed in jail, and so some money was needed, and this and that. I'm not going into any details. He's out, he's home. And through all this, I was actually fairly calm. I had, discussions with his mom, my first wife, and with him and other people. And in a situation like this, it becomes then very clear what you have to do. And also, I think that just, learning more from the New Thought philosophy helped me. I've gone through something similar with him maybe 6-7 years ago. And I actually remained fairly calm. And I think I remained that sort of rock in the, where the waves are crashing against, or at least that's sort of the picture I have in my head. That's one of the things I did, and that's what I'm here now to do. And this became very clear to me over the last few days.
Blessed be.
I'm complete.
Ooh. All right. We'll keep him in our prayers too.
Yes.
What's your son's name?
Fred.
Fred. Okay. Thank you, Reinhardt.
So I saw Krista's hand up for just a second, and then it went back down. Krista,
yeah,
did you want?
We're running short on time too, Constance.
I know, but I just want to make sure.
Okay.
See if Krista actually wanted to say something. Do you, Krista?
I could just be really super fast.
Krista.
Hi.
Hey,
So
you're
good
on
to
the
see
river,
you.
it looks like.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's beautiful out here.
you brat.
I've been thinking about the being informs the doing and a lot, and how much that's been taught to me by one of my favorite teachers. And I think about this time and how I can recognize the ways in which my being has been marinated in white supremacy conditioning, and begin to deconstruct that in order to embrace and embody all of those spiritual principles that we know are the actual truth. And so just letting go, really noticing, naming, and letting those things slide away. And this, to me, that's the gift of this time, is that I get to really see this in a deeper way.
Yeah, blessed be. As you spoke to it, I'm realizing that even the being that I thought I was so clear on before, the being is shifting and evolving and expanding too. And in order for my doing to change, I have to let the being shift and expand and evolve first. I mean, if that's the order of my equation, which it is, that my being informs my doing, then I have to look at my being first. And that's a really good point, because I think it is changing in lots and lots and lots of folks as we're learning what we have not been taught. I think it's changing what's ours to be in the world. And then that in turn will change our doing. Great point. Thank you, Krista. Gosh, this is a good conversation. I hate to end it, but here we are at the end of our time. Blessed be. Thanks, Paul. Let's take a breath. And we come full circle with the breath and with prayer, reminding ourselves that all that we are, all that we think and feel, and all that we are realizing in this time is all spirit doing its thing. It's life, and it's irrepressible, and it's happening in and through and as each person here tonight. And so I am open then to being surprised and delighted by life in the hours and days to come. I am open to being amazed and in awe and wonder at the kindness of humanity, at the good, at the beauty of nature, of the good that is all around us, that I see more and more of on a daily basis. Because by golly, I am a place where the good of God shows up in the world in ever expanding ways, in greater ways every single day. That's my prayer for myself and anyone who claims it as their own. I'm so grateful to be in such good company. And today is a pretty good day. And so I rest in that gratitude, open, receptive, knowing all is well, and getting weller by the minute. I give thanks and release the word and let it be. And so it is. Amen.
So it is.
Blessed be everyone. Thank you.